So let's dive in. Here is the way I decided to use the Lyra-8 and the Weather Drones as a drone part in the first section of my performance. I wanted to have drones that are mostly in the higher frequency spectrum, and to have them with a certain stereo width, because the venue did not have a very good acoustic placement and treatment for the speakers and monitors. And I was recommended to do a mostly mono mix, but what I decided to do is to have the mid and high frequencies being displaced in the stereo field, but to keep the bass and the rhythmic part from the pulse 23 in the middle, in the center. So the Lyra-8, being the beast that it is very, very characterful. And it is one instrument. It's the first synthesizer instrument I fell in love with, because it really pushed me and actually pulled me out of my comfort zone. There is a very, as Lat calls it, an organismic dynamic with playing the instrument, in the sense that it's very much, I feel like it's a collaboration. I don't lead as much as it does, so we have to be co-leaders in partners in the performance. So that makes for an instrument that doesn't really play well with other instruments. First of all, for instance, in terms of tuning, I can tune the instrument to play, but I was nervous about the idea of doing this right before performance. I wasn't absolutely sure where I would be placed in the venue, if there was a stage, if there was a distance between me and the audience, basically how much distraction there would be before the performance. I started to imagine catastrophic scenarios in which people would make a lot of noise and be impatient with me fiddling with the knobs by myself, and imagining a scenario in which I would be so nervous and so stressed and under pressure that it might just break me to just start by tuning the Lyra-8. So I put it aside after I played with it within the setup of the piece. But the artist who invited me to the performance then mentioned that he was a little disappointed, because he was very curious about the Lyra-8. So I decided to integrate it back into the performance, but I tamed it. I tamed it so much that it kind of becomes a bit of a boring instrument, I guess, but it's the deal I had to make with it so that it would play along. As you can tell, there are 8 voices. They're not called oscillators, they're called voices, but they all have individual tuning knobs, micro tuning knobs, and each 4 oscillators on this side have one pitch knob, and this side one pitch knob that can modulate the pitch of the 4 oscillators alongside at the same time. But otherwise, it is very much a well, I would call this a much more intuitive tuning type of instrument, and that's what I really enjoyed, because I could just do away with any scales and any theory, musical theory, and just go with my gut feeling of this is how it feels and sounds good. But for a performance such as this one, I had to tame it and reduced it to a pretty basic and kind of plain instrument. So, in order to have it play along with the other instruments, I had to tame it. What I mean by that is that I did not use the delay, the internal delay of the Lyra-8, which is very interesting because it creates fantastic feedback. But neither did I use the distortion channel, distortion effects. I basically just sent the voices to, well, not all of them, but the ones I played to a filter, which is the QPAS. The QPAS has the particularity that it can take any mono source and make it stereo, because it divides different rhythmic displacements on both channels. I kept the signal flow in stereo all the way to the Nautilus delay and reverb. But to that audio, I also added the weather drones. The weather drones also has many voices. I think it's 8 or 10 voices, but they can't be tuned independently. So they all play along in, I'm not even sure which scale or key it plays. You can basically hear many of the voices by adjusting the spread button, adding them, and the wave folder displaces them in this sort of phasing manner. It can become quite a lot, but I just tuned it to the C sharp, which was the key in which I was playing the whole performance, and just had it play with some modulation with the filter. That was pretty much it. I did play with the spread a slightly bit to give some oomph and some kick to the overall sound. But that's pretty much what I did. Let me go ahead and play some of it so that you can have an idea of what it was like. Played with the filter's QPAS frequency knob to create those undulating, very water-like ripples in the Nautilus delay. I really enjoyed that. I started with the Lyra-8 by itself, then used it crossfaded to add in the weather drones. I also played with the Nautilus chroma knob. I actually had it patched to a fader so it was easier during performance. I basically just upped and changed the reaction of the delay. It is the nature of the delay. I'll have to check the manual again to remember. But you can see that the color changes here, and it indicates the type of reaction it has to the sound. I believe they said that it was simulating how different material would sound in water. And I was playing along with these two knobs. Slowly building into a busier sequence, or by, for instance, adding a quarter to have one of the voices playing. I don't know about you, but this to me is so beautiful and dreamy and full of possibilities and emotions and potential. It's kind of like it feels like a latent kind of energy, which to me is perfect for the introduction of the piece. And I actually played this for about 20 minutes. The QPAS allows to select different harmonics within the full drone, and that's how it kind of created a in-tune type of drone. And what I did is I built up that soundscape into a much more distorted mid and high frequency walnut noise using the chroma. And when you'll see this turn to red, you'll know we're in distortion territory. There. This wasn't faded at all during the performance. I kept it at high intensity, which led into a rhythmic part with some very badass kick drum from the Pulsar 23. And we'll get into that in another video. So if you enjoyed this, stay tuned for more. Take care. Cheers.